What's up, fellas? Welcome in. Today we're looking at breakout players for the 2024 season, starting off with number one, George Pickens. So George Pickens is now the wide receiver one in Pittsburgh with the departure of Deontay Johnson. Impressive sophomore season out of Pickens. Let's take a look at some of the numbers that he put up last year. 1,140 receiving yards. That's more than Chris Olave had last year, more than DK Metcalf. Justin Jefferson obviously played 10 games, but Devontae Smith played a full season. More than him, more than Garrett Wilson. So a lot to like about Pickens in his sophomore season. He caught the ball downfield. You see his 13.5 average depth of target. You can see that compared to a lot of the other guys in this range. It's a high number coupled with his yak per reception. So not only is he catching the ball downfield, he's running with the ball, yards after catch on those deep targets. So let's take a look at a small sample, but Pickens played 4 games without Deontay Johnson in 2023. So if you remember, Deontay went down in week 1. If we look at weeks 2 through 5 here, we have a 4-game sample of Pickens with no Deontay. You'll see week 2, 10 targets, 4 for 127 and 1. Week 3, 6 targets, 4 for 75. Week 3, kind of a dud here, 7 targets, 3 for 25. And then week 5 here, 10 targets again, 6 for 130 and 1. So if we look at that paced out for the season, I know it's a small sample, but 1,500-yard pace for the season, 140 targets, 72 catches, 8 touchdowns. He's a stud, and now he has that wide receiver one role in Pittsburgh. Deontay is gone. He's over in Carolina now. So not only is Pickens going to be the wide receiver one, but he also gets a QB upgrade in Russell Wilson. If we look at some passing numbers from last year, right here we're looking at on-target percentage or on-target throws from our quarterbacks. I set the filter to 200 attempts here, just so we can weed out any players with a small sample size, any backups that came in for one game or so. But you see Russ ranks third here, 77.9% of his throws were on target. Clear upgrade over Kenny Pickett. Down here at 71.6% of his throws were on target. You'll see that was around middle of the pack, but Russ was at the top here with guys like Mahomes and Kirk Cousins, and then not sure how Zach Wilson made it into this top tier. But still, we have guys like Dak, Hurts, Herbert, Goff. All guys that show this is a pretty meaningful stat. We have some of the best quarterbacks in the league at the top here. We see Tua and Burrow as well. And let's take a look at touchdown passes next. So as a team, the Steelers only had 13 touchdown passes in 2023. That is a problem. That is why George Pickens is only catching 4 or 5 touchdowns a year when the entire team is throwing 13 passing touchdowns. There's not much to go around. If we come over and look at Russ threw 26 touchdowns in just 15 games last year. And if we look back at his career, he throws historically a lot of touchdowns. I mean, aside from 2022, that Nathaniel Hackett year where he had just 16, 25, 40, 30, 30, 30. 30 plus touchdowns every year. I know he's not the same player that he was in Seattle, but he's still a good quarterback and a huge upgrade for the Steelers offense and George Pickens in 2024. Our next breakout player for 2024 is Isiah Pacheco. He's one of the few running backs left in the league that has that true workhorse upside and utilization. Looking at his carry count last year, started off a little slow, 8-12, but then he's up into that 15 to 20 range for pretty much the rest of the season here. And then we also saw his receiving utilization spike here in the middle of the season, slowed down for a couple games, and then ended strong with 5 targets, 4 targets, 4 targets, 7 targets. And then even if we come up to the playoffs here, first couple games were slow, but then we saw when it really mattered in the AFC Championship game and the Super Bowl, 4 targets, 6 targets. And you notice he's catching everything, 6 catches on those 6 targets, 4 catches on those 4 targets. Coming back down here, 7 catches on the 7 targets, 4, 4, 3, 4, 5, 5. Also, looking at his carry count in the playoffs, when it really matters, once again, 24 carries first round, 15 against the Bills, 24 in the AFC Championship, and then 18 in the Super Bowl. So it's clear that the Chiefs trust Pacheco. They didn't do anything to bolster that depth chart behind him, they still just have CEH, Keontae Ingram, and then Deneric Prince. So it doesn't seem like anything's changing in 2024. I expect Pacheco to continue to see that workhorse usage. If we come over here, I put out a thread the other day with these breakout players, with Pacheco included. He had 77.9% of the Chiefs' running back rushing attempts in 2023. He averaged 18 opportunities a game, so that's going to be your rushing attempts plus your targets. And then he averaged 15.3 fantasy points per game. So a really solid sophomore season, again, just like Pickens. But he's ready to take that next step and really push himself into that top 10, maybe even top 5 running backs in 2024. Next up, we have one of my favorite players to draft in 2024, and that's Trey McBride. Trey McBride did not become a full-time player until week 8 against the Ravens. If you look at his snap shares here, started off the season week 1, 37% of snaps, 51, 49, 27, 33, 58. It's not until week 8 we see that 82. So he's a part-time player all the way up until week 8, where he absolutely exploded. If we go and look at his game log here, week 8, 14 targets, 10 catches, 95 yards, and a touchdown. From here on out, he was just dominant. 9 targets, 8 for 131. You see 7 targets, 9 targets, 9 targets, 11 targets. Games with 89 receiving yards, 102 receiving yards. These are elite numbers for a tight end. If we come over to PFF over here and look at our yards per route run for our tight ends, McBride led all tight ends in that category last year. More than Travis Kelce, more than George Kittle, more than Mark Andrews, more than everyone, more than Sam Laporta, who's going as the tight end 1. I just think Trey McBride is a special player. If we come over to this same thread, we have a tweet that I put out regarding Trey McBride a couple weeks ago. Again, saying he wasn't a full-time player until week 8 last year, yet he still earned 106 targets on the year. He had 81 catches despite not becoming a full-time player until halfway through the season. 825 yards. He broke 10 tackles. That was the most among all tight ends. So this guy wasn't even a full-time player until week 8, and he still led all tight ends in yards per route run, broken tackles. He paced from week 8 on for 144 targets, 112 catches, 1,114 yards, and 5 touchdowns. And now he gets a full season of Kyler Murray, a full offseason to continue to develop that rapport. Obviously, Marvin Harrison Jr. is coming in as a rookie wide receiver. He's going to earn a ton of targets himself. But I think that's only going to help McBride. That's going to draw coverage. If he's still the number 2 option in this offense, then the sky's the limit for McBride in 2024. Our next breakout pick for 2024 is Brian Thomas Jr., my favorite rookie wide receiver to draft. He's so cheap, going late in, I believe, the 8th or 9th round of drafts at this point. 6'3", 210, absolute athletic freak, 38.5-inch vertical, 4.33 speed. If we come over to this tweet that I put out, we see his relative athletic score. So if you don't know, the RAS, or the relative athletic score, weighs a player's size in comparison to their athletic metrics. So at 6'3", 210, he ran that 4.33 40 or 4.34. He's got a 38.5-inch vertical and scored a 9.97 out of 10 on the RAS. If we come over here and look at our opportunity with the Jaguars, just looking at end zone targets between just Calvin Ridley and Zay Jones, they have 28 vacated end zone targets between the two of them. If we come back over to this tweet, they have 251 total vacated targets as a team, 57 of those in the red zone, 28 in the end zone, and now we're putting this 6'3" monster with that 38.5-inch vertical on this team. A guy that knows how to find the end zone. He had 17 touchdowns, led all of college football last year, and he has that first-round draft capital. They did add Gabe Davis to the Jaguars as well. Same type of player. He'll be used deep. He's utilized in the red zone, but I just think Brian Thomas is going to win out that battle more often than not. We know what Gabe Davis is at this point. He's not a special player. He's a good role player. He's a good deep ball guy, but Brian Thomas has the opportunity to come in and change this Jaguars offense. Our last breakout for the day is Jonathan Brooks, and he's probably the best value of anyone we've looked at today. He's going at an ADP of 101 as the running back 32 off the board in drafts. I'm sure that price will go up as we get closer to the season and more reports on his ACL rehab are put out there. But looking at some numbers with Brooks, so through his final 10 games at Texas, his numbers were pretty comparable to Bijan Robinson. And we all know how hyped up Bijan was coming out of college. He went 8th overall to the Falcons. But if we look at the numbers here, through their first 10 games in their final season at Texas, we're just looking at these 10 games because Brooks did tear his ACL after his first 10 games of his last season at Texas. But he averaged 142.5 scrimmage yards per game up until that point, 6.1 yards per carry, 10 touchdowns, 25 catches. Bijan, slightly better in some of these metrics, 147 yards from scrimmage per game, a little bit more than Brooks, 5.7 yards per carry, 12 touchdowns, 19 catches. So we see Brooks is clearly a stud. He was putting that Texas team on his back, and now he's drafted into a perfect opportunity in Carolina. Carolina Panthers have a new head coach in Dave Canales coming over from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, where Rachaad White just saw 342 opportunities. And Rachaad White is not some uber talented guy like Jonathan Brooks is coming out of college. Brooks was the first running back taken in the draft, and Canales chose him as his guy. So when he's healthy, he's going to be feeding Jonathan Brooks the ball. They still have Chuba Hubbard there. They still have Miles Sanders at this point. Wouldn't be surprised to see Sanders get cut. And Chuba Hubbard is just a fine running back. He's a good backup, but he's certainly not a starting caliber player. If we come over here and we look back at some rookies who dominated over the back half of the year, that's kind of what I expect to see out of Jonathan Brooks. He might start a little slow. He's expected to be ready by training camp in July, coming off that ACL midway through his college season last year. But coming back over to Miles Sanders here, looking at his year in 2019, this is kind of what we're looking at for Brooks to dominate over the back half. If you see, once Sanders got involved midway through the season here, it looks like about week 6, 18 points, 22.8 in week 8, and then after the bye week here, 21.5 points, 11, 35, 26, 8. A good strong end to the season there. So Sanders ended up finishing as the RB15 his rookie season, but it's that back half stretch that we're really looking for. Same thing with Jonathan Taylor. JT's situation was a little different when Marlon Mack got hurt early on, but you see he was pretty solid throughout the season, and then over here at the end he just exploded and went off and won people championships over the back half. So that's really what we're looking for in Brooks. Remember, he's a very talented running back. He was drafted as the first running back off the board in 2024. Thank y'all for watching. If you could go ahead and smash the like button and subscribe for me, I'll be putting out plenty of more videos this offseason to help you all prepare for your 2024 fantasy football drafts. Peace.